Hello, Amanda. Today we're talking about how to report to the C-suite or the board as a head of marketing or as a CMO. It's a struggle that I believe a lot of marketing leaders have tried, and it's both tried and tested how to and how not to. So you've been sitting as a marketing leader in various different companies, and you've had to report to the C-suite and the board at multiple times, right? So if we just open up this huge bucket of a topic, how do you actually report to the board or the C-suite as a head of marketing?
That's a very good question, Magnus, and a very, very important one. Um, I think the most important part is to get a common understanding and alignment on what you're looking at. So when you're talking to people who maybe not be marketing native or don't exactly know the day to day on marketing, it doesn't always make sense to deep dive into KPIs and platform metrics and performance indicators that lie a lot away from the core business. What you should be doing instead is to propel yourself up a notch and take a look at the business at a bigger perspective. So your finest job as a head of marketing or CMO is to tie marketing activities back to the business and report on how you're contributing to revenue, how you're contributing to business growth. It could be both on softer and harder metrics, but really to take a step back and out of the day to day and into the business. That would be my starting point. Really finding alignment on what to look at from a business perspective.
All right. So let's set up a scenario and say that you are a very traditional SaaS. You have your sales department. Your finest job as the marketing department is to drive obviously awareness out there, but also some hard intent or high intent inbounds. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, you may already have a department and you've been there for a while, or maybe you're new in town and it's a new gig. If we start with let's say the new gig, right? You come in as a head of marketing, you're trying to set everything up, you have the possibility to do everything right from the get-go. Then what does that process look like? Trying to keep maybe the founders in the loop, the board in the loop. Where do you start?
I would definitely start with sales and marketing alignment. Sit down together with sales, understand sales process, understand how they're currently working with inbound leads coming in from marketing activities, anything from events to website leads over lead ads on LinkedIn. Um, and get an understanding of status quo. So how is the quality is one of the most important questions to clear first. Um, I mean, if marketing is only measured on the number of MQLs, that come in, it's pretty easy to hit targets. But to me, it's crucial that marketing actually deliver leads that sales can work with. And that's a whole other game, and it's to really kind of uncover that metric and the quality. Then you need to have very close connection and communication with sales. So that would be my starting point, really to talk with sales on what is it that we want, what kind of leads is it that actually contribute the best to revenue, and what converts better than other. Um, and then start deep diving into that process, right? That's where I would start.
Hmm.
um Finding out, where do we align, where do we look, when do we look at the same things, and how do we define it. An MQL, marketing qualified lead, can be defined in many ways, right? In some companies it's a lead that comes in from the website. If it comes from the website, even if it's a salesperson that sends the link, to a prospect, and he then converts on the website. If it comes in through a marketing or a website form, then it's a marketing qualified lead. In other cases, everything website is not necessarily considered marketing. It has to be from marketing channels or something that comes from events, for instance. So really figuring out exactly what metric it is that marketing should be measured on together with sales. If it's MQLs, then it's important that MQLs are defined properly and in a way that we can actually measure. If it's the MQL to SQL or the contact to SQL conversion rate that we're looking at, that says something about both, of course, the leads coming in, but also how good are they? How well can sales actually work with them? That's also a metric that's interesting to look at. It could also be weighted pipeline or actual revenue that has at some point had a contact with marketing. It all depends, I think, a lot on how closely sales and marketing work together. In many companies, it's two very different departments. It's siloed and they don't work together. Sales doesn't account for if their leads have engaged with ebooks or pricing pages. They don't have any leading indicators. They don't look at their prospects' behavior. They only look at what happened after it landed at sales desk. And in some cases, after a lead has passed on to sales, it's also no longer nurtured by marketing. I see that a lot. I'm a huge fan of bridging between sales and marketing. So I think we get much better quality if when a lead lands on a salesperson's desk, if marketing continues to add value to that lead, stay top of mind, build trust, help sales with actually massaging this lead into moving down the buying road, right? So I really think that talking to sales is key in this whole process, and align on what steps are important and how do we work together to get the best foundation and to eventually drive the best leads and most revenue, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I would start the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before, yeah, because I guess what happens typically if you don't have that alignment within sales and marketing, then you become like it becomes, like a competition, and it's not necessarily friendly, right? So you gotta be on the same
Exactly.
terms. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I guess, from the founder's perspective, right, they don't see it as a sort of a single go-to-market motion, right? They see it as two individual sources, right? Do we hire more salespeople or do we dedicate more budget to marketing for potentially ad spend, right? Okay, so first step for you is definitely aligning just with the head of sales. Uh, what have you seen of like scenarios where that doesn't actually fly? So let's say that there's no potentially a chief commercial officer who has the understanding of both sales and marketing, right? So you are the head of marketing and you have a colleague who's head of sales, right? You're both technically reporting individually to the board. Have you seen any sort of examples where that really goes hand in hand and you're able to deliver sort of a shared report? And, let's say the opposite where you're basically fighting for attribution, right? That's a big topic, so let's try and unpack that.
Yeah. I've definitely mostly seen the latter. That it ends up being a competition on who delivered the most leads, sales fighting back to marketing that their leads are not any good. They don't want to touch any MQLs because they're bad quality, and marketing fighting back, complaining about sales not doing their work, wanting that they don't want to engage in the marketing leads, and that they just prioritize their own networks and their own work, and that sales simply don't do a good enough job converting MQLs. Um, and what was your actual question again, Magnus?
The question was the example of when sales and marketing are aligned versus when they're not aligned.
Yeah.
So how that works in tangent with reporting to the board, right?
I mean, of course, it works better when you work together as a team, when sales and marketing are actually joined. Um, and focusing on the same goal, and the same end goal should be: are we selling enough? Are we delivering the leads we want? Are we delivering the revenue that we want to grow the business? So to have that joint metric to focus on, that is where it doesn't matter who delivered the sale. I think that's my dream scenario, right? Where you work together as a company, also with customer success or after sales, or what you have in your company, right? But when you're focusing on one core goal, driving more revenue or getting more customers, depending on what's your focus, right? If we could look at that and then don't care about who had the last touch, who signed it off, but believe in that we are a joint organism that work together on the same things, if we collaborate and trust in that marketing is doing a good job, they do their best to support our overall business goals. Sales does the same. Sales does what it can to help the customer after a lead comes in, and drive everything to the end. If we just have more, I think if we build more trust in each other and work more together, collaborate more, that's where we really get to a sweet spot where a company, the commercial part of a company, could actually drive much more value than they do when they are siloed and focus much more on competition and on who drove the most. It might require quite a bit of diplomatic skill to get on board with looking less on nitty gritty things in the silos, and look more holistically on an end goal. But I think there's much won if you try to take that um, take your time to actually do that work, and get people on board looking at the bigger picture. And of course, it's better if you have a partner in crime in sales and in after sales that could help you get there, right? And have, so that you're more people coming together on this. And if that's not the case, if you cannot do that, then you need to work around it in a better way. Then you need to, I mean, sometimes you need to work with what you've got. Then you
Yeah.
need to accept that you're siloed, that you don't have any influence on the sales process or on the metrics that you look at. And maybe it's top down decided that you are marketing, so you are only measured on the number of MQLs. And then it's a different game, and then it's of course it's different what you are focusing on. I believe it doesn't necessarily drive any good behavior just to focus on volume. And personally, I've often, on my own initiative, sat down and dug out data on lead quality, conversion rates after marketing let go of it, right? So was it ever an MQL? What actually happened afterwards? Because I like um, to be able to show that the work that I do actually has an impact. And as a marketing leader, I think it's a very good thing to look at, even if your C level is not saying you get your bonus on this, but you get it on the volume. If they say that, so be it. Things might change, and they might ask questions later on. But why isn't it converting? Why is sales saying that the quality is bad? Why is it XYZ, right? You can still get a lot of pushback. So still looking at the quality on your own initiative is, in my opinion, a very, very good thing to do, just so that you have it for your own sake, and you have it in case you get pushback. You have it to guide your team to take the right decisions. Um, and I think you can easily set a different direction in your marketing silo if you're so unlucky to be in a silo. Um, you can still um, nudge the direction that marketing should go in. You can still influence that and make the best version of what you have to work with, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I've been in both situations, right? If we're unpacking the topic of what do you do before you even start reporting to the C-suite or the board, right? So I've been in both cases where we started running a, let's say, a lead gen motion and then more of a demand gen motion, right? In one of them, I did not consult with sales. In the other one, I actually built it with sales, right? So I think you mentioned something about losing trust in each other, and then the opposite, building bridges, right? So my example is that about looking into lead quality. We had been running lead generation for approximately 1.5 years at that point. We hadn't actually split the funnel, and we hadn't looked at the conversion rates from these leads, right? Because we were measured on the quantity and not necessarily the quality. Now, what's interesting is that marketing, and it's basically to your point about reporting as a shared unit versus being in silos, right? So here we reported in silos. Marketing did deliver the leads. We thought we were doing a great job. Sales, on the other hand, were infinitely frustrated with us, right? Did not want to touch marketing leads. That was really bad because as things sort of progressed, this, let's call it this split of marketing and sales just sort of, became wider and wider, right? Until at one point, sales were not even acknowledging the marketing leads. And I think I want to ask you, going from that perspective, how would you sort of come back from that? Anecdotally, the way we came back from that was that we started to split out the funnel. We found out that lead generation did not actually work. They were not ready to buy. They were just, it was soft conversions, right? So sending them over to sales actually did more harm than good because we wasted sales time. And then we sort of tried to turn everything around, looking at it holistically. Um, do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I do actually. I've been in the exact same situation in the past. I would definitely say if you land in that situation and you don't have that joint, collaboration where you can work it out together, then you should take the responsibility in your own hand and get your data straight. Get it sorted out, do a deep dive. I mean, as marketeers, you always have access to the sales data as well. You can see what happens with the leads, and if you can, as a good marketing person, you are able to take a look at the data and determine whether this is a good sales conversion rate or not. And if you see bad numbers in the sales pipeline, I think it's still your responsibility as the head of marketing to change that. If you can see that your leads are bad, that it's not generating anything, and sales, for a fact that sales has actually reached out to them and they have disqualified them on a valid basis, then you need to do something differently. I mean, that's just working proactively, right? So the things that you suggest, splitting the funnel, looking much more into what do we deliver where and what kind of leads do we get at the bottom versus at the middle. When do we decide to even pass them on to sales? Um, in smaller and younger companies, sales might very well want everything. And that also means that they risk getting spam leads or leads that are not really ready to buy. And that often ends up frustrating people. So really breaking it down, making sure that you only send mature leads onto sales is really, really good. And if you can, it's not that easy to determine, I think, exactly where this what I'm about to suggest should sit. But you could add lead qualification as a middle ground between marketing and sales, bridging the gap. if there is a gap. It does make sense that it is in marketing because that secures that marketing is not passing on leads to sales, and sales will only focus on what's actually of good quality. But to have someone sitting and based on some predefined criteria, evaluating the leads coming in is a valid and proven good way of working with leads when you don't have that close collaboration between marketing and sales. Then you should do some of the qualification yourself in marketing. It's time consuming. It requires a resource. It requires priority and dedication. But you might end up getting a much more efficient sales department when you secure that you only send over good leads. So definitely, marketing should be taking responsibility of the quality of the leads they generate, because if they don't, then how should we ever justify spending the money that we often do? How should we ever justify asking for more ad spend? We can only ask for more if we can also show the board and C-level that what we do is actually doing a difference and that we deliver good quality, that we can show that marketing leads have higher or at least as good conversion rates as leads coming from other places. If this joint or working together is not working in the commercial department.
I definitely agree. I think this situation I ended up in was that we started reporting on volume. And at that point, right, once the board has accepted that now marketing is delivering volume, when you then switch, right, after you've split the funnel, you've realized, oh shit, these numbers, they don't add up. It becomes a really, really tough gig to then try and argue for the opposite, right? Because suddenly you're looking into potentially hundreds of thousands of wasted spend, things that have not turned into pipeline. And I think there's one common denominator here, which is lead gen forms, right? Typically, all these marketing departments would not see the influx of leads if they didn't have or did not use lead gen forms, right? So it's basically thinking about the old HubSpot methodology. Back in 2016, when everybody was running lead gen forms, we thought that was the magic key to revenue. A lot of companies are still in that position, right? And I think that's really the tough sell is now you're in this position. You've been doing this. Doing anything else would be you admitting that, okay, things have not actually progressed the way we thought they would, right? Sales are frustrated. This marketing spend has not led to any significant revenue. And then having that conversation is tough. I tried it myself. And I took those learnings to go into a different job where we sort of set up the motion of, okay, we have XYZ companies we do want to target. We're not after volume here, right? Sales team cannot handle that volume anyway. We're after quality leads that we get through, good marketing where we show off the product pain points. We try and address those specifically. But for those companies, and sometimes we get in touch with them at Sparkforce, right? They're running these lead gen playbooks. They're reporting to the board through the volume game, right? And then they come to us, they consult us, Sparkforce, what do we do here? What do we then do actually, Amanda? Can you take us through that?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, you should discover it, right? I mean, you should not go for 2-3 years and not be aware of this. I think it's crucial that you actually are able to and have the data in place that you can avoid this in the first place. That being said, if that happens and you suddenly are in a place where you realize, shit, we've done wrong. The best thing you can do is to kind of do a self-audit. Look into what happened, why did we end up here, what behaviors, metrics, errors, people might have led to us focusing on the wrong things. What have we learned? Sometimes the The market also changes, the technology, the digital landscape changes, and especially in big companies, it's difficult to always be on top of everything. And in those cases, you simply when you learn that a mistake has been made, the first thing you need to do is to say it, speak it up, tell someone that you messed up, or that you made a mistake or made a bad decision, and then learn from it. Figure out, how do we avoid doing the same thing again? How can we make sure that we discover it earlier next time? And make a plan of how to come back. Get the new best practices. Understand the digital landscape. If you figure out that some of your technology is not no longer good enough or the right fit for where you've moved, or whatever it could be, right? Whatever the reason is, solve it. If just show your people, the people that are relying on you to solve your these problems and do your work, show them that you have a plan for getting back on track and that you've learned something from this mistake. I mean, it also depends on how crucial it is, right? But to always stay on top of data, always looking into what's actually happening with my lead after I let it go. If you have that data in place, if you think about it from the start, you will not end up in this position anyways. Is my best guess. I mean, I've made my fair share of mistakes as well, and that's not that little. It's a
Mm.
lot. And what I've taken from that is learnings, as you say, right? We learn from it. We take it on to new jobs and to new positions and get better at it. Um, and but to kind of have some prevention plan in place to make sure, it could be educating your team, make sure that your team is, if you cannot personally be on top of all the new technology or all the best practices and all new channels, make sure that you actually allocate budget and time for your team to
Mm.
upskill themselves, to go on conferences, to learn something. Set aside 2 hours a week for them to read, something like that. Make time so that they can stay educated and on top of their things, because in a fast-paced environment, this is really, really difficult to find time to do. And when you're off duty, you want to be off duty, right? Marketing, it goes fast. In big companies, it goes fast. Also in small startups, it goes really fast because you really want to survive. You want to show that this product or this tool or whatever it is you sit with, it does a difference. And so we don't have time to sit down and deep dive into things if we don't set time aside for it. And as a field working marketer, that's difficult to find time to. So managing your people, help them with prioritizing education and upskilling by setting time aside and money aside for that.
Yeah.
That's a way of also preventing that things go out of hand, um, because they know what to look for, and you can have trust in that the team will help you see if the marketing strategy was wrong, or that something was not adding up.
Yeah. I think it's inherently quite interesting how to sort of describe it, right? You use the word mistake. And how I typically think of it is, yeah, definitely in hindsight, it was a mistake to do so. But I think the companies that we engage with, that we know of, right? A lot of them are still using this playbook. And in my own experience, I definitely agree with you wholeheartedly. But I think the process of then becoming data driven, understanding the functionality of splitting the funnel, it is definitely a process, right? You don't just go there from one day to the other. However, I think what's interesting is here that once you've sort of admitted that, all right, it's not a volume game anymore. It's not 2020, right, or 2016, where after quality and we need leads that actually go through the funnel, right? If we were to unpack that then, and we're saying, how do we then report to the board? We know that maybe we've been doing the wrong strategy, or maybe we're doing the right strategy, right? I think there are definitely universal truths to present to the board. So
there will also always be a lot of data. I mean, even if you let's not call it a mistake. In some cases, it is a mistake. I've made mistakes, but if you make a wrong turn, or you predicted something that ended up not being reality, then on that journey you still have a lot of learnings. You have so much data, even if the quality of the leads were not that good. There's a lot of things you can do by excluding things and looking into engagement. There's a lot of data that provides you with insights and knowledge on what works and what doesn't. And when things go wrong, you definitely learn what you shouldn't do again. It's just a matter of then opening that box and unpacking it and showing the learnings from any mistake to your managers or C level in that case. So there's a lot that you can take from it. And you learn the most when you fail, right? One of my old managers, one of the finest things that he told me that I've really taken with me was that I should always, it's fine to fail. I can always fail. But if I fail fast and learn from it, then that would be perfect. But he expected me to fail, and he wanted me to fail, because that was where I grew and where I learned what, is the right approach, both from how to build processes, how to talk with people, how to do better marketing, how to set up reporting, anything, right? Fail, go ahead, fail, but fail fast and learn from it.
Yeah, I agree. If we were to dive into just, the nitty-gritties here, right? So basically going into the engine room, as the name suggests. I'll start off here about the learnings, right? So I would say, in order to report to the board properly, it means that you need to be doing the right activities, right? So as a specialist here, you're obviously, you have the overview. I'm more down in, doing the nitty-gritties there. I would say that my learnings from having had to report to the C-suite for some time now is that you need to be able to understand your ICP, right? So defining that ICP, understanding who your best buyers are, not your average buyers, right? Your ideal customer profile. And then really also understanding, your product and its use case. Okay, what are we actually selling here? Is it a good offer, right? Does it actually answer the questions that they may have out there? Does it fix the pain points? And then I think once you've done that, you really need to look into your content, right? This content or these ads that we're actually putting out there, are they then relevant, right? Are we doing gated ebooks? Okay, maybe that's not the best thing to do, but these ebooks, are they at least good, right? Or is it just, average content? And then really interviewing potentially your core customers here and asking them, if you were in the market now, what type of content would you love to see? What sort of pain points are you still having that maybe we could answer? Or before you bought our solution, what sort of, what pain points did you have then? And what pain points of those have you now solved, right? And taking sort of this approach to it means that when you're then finally doing your marketing, you know that you're doing the right marketing because you've consulted with your best buyers, right? So you're basically set up here to at least win somewhat. Maybe you're not right on the money, but I think you're far better than just basing it on internal thoughts and opinions. So I think you gotta be customer first, right? In your marketing approach. Now, that doesn't solve how you then report to the board. It just makes sure that you don't have to admit you made a mistake because you're doing it the right way from the get-go, right? So if we then take that and say, okay, we're doing it the right way, depending obviously on, scale and complexity, then how do you then set that up for the board, right?
I need to understand what you're asking exactly. So are you asking how to get buy-in on doing all the from the board or from C level, doing all the initial prep work?
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. So I'm saying that, if you're doing marketing in a way where you're right on the money in terms of pain points and you're right on the money in terms of content, right? From your side, you're doing everything right. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot unless you're actually able to communicate that, right? So we could be doing everything right, but we're not good at communicating. I'll take myself as an example. I need to work on that, right? So how would you then go about, for example, let's say I'm the person in the company, I really truly believe I do everything right, but I'm not quite there in terms of communicating that to the board, basically reporting to the board. What do I then need to be mindful of, right? They care about revenue at the end. Are there any sort of numbers they care more about, they care less about? Do I need to be short and concise, or is it more elaborate, right? From your experience reporting to the C-suite and the board.
Um, it should, in most cases, be short and concise. You probably have to report to C-level on a weekly or a monthly basis. You need a structured form that is very easy to understand, where you have some agreed core metrics to focus on and some leading indicators that kind of emphasize something else. Um, if we should go into specifics, it could be, the number of MQLs. It could be the MQL to closed won conversion rate, or something similar to that, kind of stating what is the quality of the leads from marketing. It could be revenue, and if you're really good on your in your data quality and your attribution, it could even be marketing attributed or accounted revenue. Then on the softer side, no, one more that's important to look at is some kind of return on investment. It could be your return on investment of all marketing costs. It could be return on ad spend. It could also be CAC payback period, or CAC payback time, and or something similar, something that kind of shows you how well or how quickly are we getting the money that marketing used or we invested in marketing back. So that could be for really good metrics to that tie very, very closely into business objectives that C-levels are often concerned about. Um, and then on the softer side, it could be something like brand searches. How strong is your brand? Is it something that people are actually looking for? Is it growing? Are you expanding your the knowledge that people have about you? This takes a lot of time to look at. So it's a metric with a long-term perspective. You should not look at that on a week-to-week basis, but maybe once or twice or 4 times a year. Right, evaluating that. It could also be engagement rates, or how is your organic presence working. It could also be mentions in the press or in social media. Something that kind of qualifies your presence a bit more than very quantitative data does, right? It tells you something about the business, but it doesn't tell you a lot about where is your position in the market. So that could be very interesting metrics also for a company to look at, because they are, of course, concerned about their future and their brand and the perspective in what they're doing. So if they see a trend that they're decreasing in all of these numbers, it's kind of bad, right? That indicates that maybe we should do something entirely different than we are now. Maybe it's time for rebrand or new products or something like that. And in the other direction, right? If it goes good, then it's happy and you can celebrate and you can kind of prove that what you do is working on so much more than just today's revenue. Because when your brand is getting better, then your revenue will hopefully also increase, not tomorrow, but in a couple of years' time, right? So that's a way of doing it. Really have some simple visualization with 6, 8, maybe 10 core metrics you want to focus on. You can set it up in Lucas Studio or something like that. It can be super simple. You can also use Power BI or other tools to do that. So that's an easy way of talking about it when you have those 5-10 minutes on a weekly or monthly basis with the the top people, delivering your best performance. And then on a quarterly basis, maybe there's a need for a deep dive, right? Where you're reporting on how are things going on a deeper level. How is each department in marketing or each area in marketing performing? Where are we seeing the best trends? Where have we decided to maybe do something differently? This is also where you can communicate your mistakes. If you realize we thought that we should be doing this, but in reality, we learned that we should be doing this instead. This is a good way of communicating what you do and kind of take these wrong turns in advance, because you communicate. You cannot communicate too much, right? So that would be definitely my take on that. Do it structured. Find a structure that suits you, one that works on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, short term, and then do a deep dive on a quarterly basis, for instance, where you can go into details.
And let's let those be the last words on how to actually report to the C-suite. Obviously, you can't just do a one-to-one, strategy. This is how you do it every time. It is obviously dependent on your organization, where you are in your marketing journey, how you collaborate with sales. But there's definitely some key takeaways here, which is keep it simple, don't overcomplicate it, and have your eyes on the money. And that's it.